and welcome to Jim and Ben's Movie Adventures. My name is Ben, and with me is...
Young Frankenstein?
Because we watched Young Frankenstein, Journey in the Making.
And it's one that produced unexpected results, shall we just say. Ooh. So why don't you tell us a little bit about a synopsis of this movie, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts.
Dr. Frederick Frankenstein, or later on, Frankenstein, grandson of the infamous Dr. Victor Frankenstein, inherits his family's castle in Transylvania. Initially rejecting his grandfather's experiments, he discovers Victor's private laboratory and notes. Intrigued, he decides to continue the works of reanimating the dead. With the help of his assistants, Igor and Inga, Frederick assembles a body of stolen parts and successfully brings the creature to life. Complications arise with the creature due to receiving an abnormal brain by mistake. He escapes the castle and causes panic in a nearby village as Frederick tries to control and communicate with the creature. He also struggles with the suspicions of the townspeople and the pursuit of Inspector Kemp. Events escalate with the creature kidnaps Frederick's fiancée Elizabeth, leading to an unexpected turn in their relationship. The story concludes with Frederick attempting a dangerous procedure to stabilize the creature and shift part of his own intellect to it, resulting in lasting changes for both man and creature. That's the movie. That's what happens.
Do you have some facts about this cinematic
I do.
Masterpiece? I don't know.
Masterpiece. 100% a masterpiece. Released in 1974, directed by Mel Brooks, screenplay by Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks, based on the novel Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Cinematography by Gerald Hirschfeld, starring Gene Wilder, Peter Boyle, Marty Feldman, Cloris Leachman, Terry Garr, Kenneth Mars, and Madeline Kahn, with Gene Hackman. Mel Brooks was also the voice of the werewolf, the cat hit by the car, and Victor Frankenstein. Music by John Morris. Budget of $278 million, with a total box office of $86,278,189. Runtime 105 minutes.
You did it. It's tough when you have to do the synopsis and the facts. It's like keep going. Keep going. Just keep going. Go again. Like,
keep it going.
It's a lot of me sitting here going,
Well, that's me for the rest of the podcast, usually just sitting there going, yeah, cinematography, scenes.
Look, I said
mise en scène.
I said at the start of the podcast that for me, this was unexpected. And there are many things that were highly unexpected for me about this movie. Some of them good, some of them not so good. But this was a film that I'd never seen. And I don't know if I thought I knew about it or it was stuck in the brain somewhere, but it became very clear to me as I watched it. Not only had I never seen it, I knew nothing about it. I really didn't know what I was in for here. So I was surprised at so many things in the movie and just the way it went, the twists and turns. But you were the one who said, and I was thinking, by the way, as I watched it, you were like, oh, it was an old family favorite. I'm like, this is not a kid's movie, Ben. So what? I was like,
absolutely not a kid's movie. Never claimed it was.
Okay, but at several points, I assumed, it was young Ben.
I probably first saw this movie when I was 12, 13, 14 maybe.
All right. Even that.
I wasn't like a child, but yeah, no, there's some definitely adult themes in this movie.
Yes.
Mel Brooks's humor, a lot of times, really insinuates a lot of adult situations that don't necessarily get shown, and some that do, with very heavy innuendo. And the heavy innuendo is part of the inbuilt humor of a Mel Brooks film. I mean, we watched Robin Hood Men in Tights. It exists in there too. It's just maybe a little bit more direct in this film.
I'd probably say as well that having seen Robin Hood Men in Tights, which I think, now that I think about it, Robin Hood Men in Tights and The Producers might be the only other two Mel Brooks movies that I've seen. And there are so many gags from actually this film, because this film was what,
Yeah.
1974, that are repeated in both of those other movies quite a bit, but particularly Robin Hood Men in Tights. There was several just one-for-one gags where it was like, oh, we did that exact same thing back in Young Frankenstein.
I think the
So
classic is Walk This Way. Like
there's
that.
Walk This Way, there's pronunciation
Yeah.
gags, like there's just it's very, very similar in a lot of different ways.
So I this is a family favorite. Definitely for me, my father, and my mother. And um, I still find it funny to this day. It hits all the right parts of my brain to make me laugh. And I've seen this movie, I don't know, 20 times maybe in my life. Maybe a little less than that, but a lot, right? But I also look at it and go, man, this movie's a mess of structure. Like, the structure is not great in this movie. The storytelling's actually not particularly great either. But what is great to me is the gags. I don't think every time I laugh at a different collection of scenes harder than the last time. For a while, it was Putting on the Ritz always got me. This time it was Gene Hackman as the Hermit that got me real hard this time. I laughed out loud that time. But yeah, I don't know, I have a real warm place in my heart for this movie.
I'll say there are a lot of sections of this movie that I quite enjoyed, which I'll definitely talk about. But you mentioned structure, and that was one of the most unusual things about the film, because this movie definitely struck me from a structure point of view, because Act One is a linear, standard structure where we're setting up the characters. We have a turning point. We launch into Act Two, and then as soon as we hit Act Two of the movie, which is functionally when he reawakens the creature, the movie becomes episodic, and it becomes these little vignettes of just the creature doing things and Frankenstein doing things, and it doesn't really build in a huge way until we sort of have a bit of a finale, but it's almost a bit of a hand wave finale. There's not a lot to it. In a way, it's just another episode. And then there's an epilogue and we finish. And it's just sort of something that struck me as very strange. I wouldn't say bad. I wouldn't
No.
say it doesn't work. It's just that most films don't do that. It's like, if you're going to be highly episodic, you don't usually get episodic in the mid portion, and you don't start that way and you don't end that way. It's just an odd kind of escalation in the movie.
You can see, and these are probably movies we'll never watch for the podcast because they just don't fit our way. But you can see where movies like Scary Movie and Not Another Teen Movie and those Zucker movies really got their episodicness from, right? Like the Mel Brooks DNA is so strong in that type of movie comedy that continues till today, really. Those movies are probably less popular, but even the Liam Neeson Naked Gun movie was released. That very much owes its existence and its DNA to this type of movie before it. This kind of comedy that comes from vaudevillian kind of roots, comes from those kind of stage roots, and got transferred into the screen by the maestro that is Mel Brooks. You say that you've seen the three movies, right? The Producers, Robin Hood Men in Tights, and Young Frankenstein now. There is one movie that we will never watch that is called Blazing Saddles. That takes everything that is adult and over the top in these movies to the nth degree,
Right.
and
Okay.
throws in race.
So, okay.
Yeah. So but I'm just saying, I've watched those are the four main Mel Brooks, plus some skits and stage stuff that he done, like what is it, 3,000-Year-Old Man or whatever it is. But
yeah, right.
Look, I just love the humor.
I do think that this movie as well has a lot of charm to it. The core kind of trio, of Frankenstein, his assistant, the female assistant, and then Igor, they're actually a really likable trio to actually go through this movie. And once they sort of, take the screen together, in a way, I'm kind of surprised we never got a sequel, because those three together, they're just a great team to be around, and and particularly in the mid part of the movie, I was just enjoying watching them together on screen, doing these comedic bits and silly gags and stuff like that. And I would say everybody is quite good in the movie at their particular brands of comedy. So my favorite had to be Marty Feldman as Igor. He was so good, and just the way he delivered his lines, and there was very much, again, a lot of characters from Robin Hood Men in Tights I feel like I could trace back to Igor. You know, some of the delivery of Little John from Men in Tights is exactly what's going on here.
Even the hump joke.
Yes.
The hump shift sides.
Yeah. Exactly. The hump shift sides. Like, so, but he's really good. And I actually paused the movie halfway through and looked something up, because I could not.
It's not your style.
It's not. But I was so distracted by Marty Feldman's eyes in the film. And his eyes are unusually just big. And I went, like, the actual eyeball. I had my sort of behind the scenes hat on going, prosthetics? No. Contact lenses? I don't think so. And I was going, it's 1974. How did they get literally his eyeballs to bulge that way? Turns out he had a medical condition of some kind, which it was just a trait of this medical condition that his eyeball was unusually large. And this character of Igor, who is designed to kind of accentuate those eyes, I just went, wow, that's like perfect casting in a way that it took this sort of feature that was just a natural thing that the actor had, and then he was able to use those eyes in such an expressive way. And I was, like I said, I had to pause, because I was like, I don't understand how this is happening. It turns out it was natural. So there you go.
It's kind of almost that bit of cinema that we don't get anymore, of the unusual looking actor who can also just act his socks off, right?
Yes.
Like he's not on screen because he looks unusual. He's on screen because he can act, and he happens to have an unusual trait. You don't get that much anymore. You get one of the other, really. You get someone who's cast because they look unusual, or you get someone who can act. Like, you don't get both, and you don't need to anymore either, with special effects and the progression of film and things like that. But Marty Feldman in this movie, I would hazard to say this movie doesn't quite work without him specifically. Like, the role of Igor or Igor is important, obviously, but the way he does it with, like, the timing and the looks to screen and that kind of, it's magic.
Yeah, it's a huge part of the movie. And I would actually agree with you. The movie basically doesn't work without him, and his performance has to be as good as it is for the whole thing to sit. And it was my favorite part of the film, really. Anytime he was on screen and I was watching him perform, I was really enjoying myself and having a good time. So look, and that's not to say anyone else is bad. Everyone else is great. Like, Gene Wilder's great as, Frankenstein. And I was super surprised at, I recognized him straight away, but the monster is the dad from Everybody Loves Raymond.
Frank Barone.
That's
Peter
so
Boyle.
Weird to me. Yep. Here he is as Frankenstein.
A very young Peter Boyle.
Yeah, so that was fun as well. And I also just enjoyed the trappings of the movie. The idea that we were going to do this kind of throwback. We were shooting in black and white. It's the idea of the Universal monster movies of the 1930s, where they were doing Dracula and they were doing Frankenstein and they were doing all of these sort of, it was horror, yes, but it's very soft horror the way they did it back in the 1930s. It's not like what we have today, where everyone's got nightmares and, feels bad about themselves.
Horror was the concept back then, not necessarily the execution.
It was more the idea of something's a little bit spooky,
It's like different.
Not like what we're seeing with things like Alien or whatnot, where you're like, I'm scarred for life, so which fits this tone kind of quite nicely. But I enjoyed seeing that, the Gothic castles, the the costumes, the black and white, the framing, the labs, this sort of stuff was fun for me to
The
actually
the
see all
homage
those.
the homage part of it was well done.
Mm.
Like it really did try and make itself look and feel like those movies.
Which actually does something interesting. I always find it interesting when a movie that is now old, so 1974 is not new, right? But it then is trying to go back in time itself to an older time period, and it really throws off a modern audience because you're watching
Yeah.
something that's it's old, but then it's trying to be even older, and it all gets a little bit interesting and meta to actually look at the thing. So that was fun as well.
So at the start of this, you said that this movie, what was it, Unexpected Results? Or
Yeah.
what explain this to me?
I think a lot of the things we've already talked about, where I just
Oh,
went,
okay.
I was not expecting an almost episodic structure to show up
Yeah,
in the
okay.
middle. I was not expecting Frank Boyle from Everybody Loves Raymond to show up in the middle. I wasn't expecting to be, really bewitched and confused by Marty Feldman's physical traits and having to say, who is this performer? And looking him up, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting to laugh as much as I did. I wasn't expecting putting on the Ritz with Frankenstein's monster halfway through the movie. I was like, okay, I didn't know where we were going. I didn't think we were going here. So there is a lot of stuff about the movie where I was just like twists, turns, unexpected things. And whatever I thought Young Frankenstein was,
Just
it
wasn't.
wasn't. So that's where I sort of say unexpected results for me. And most of it I found quite charming. I will say some of it, yes, a little bit too bawdy for me at times. And also, I would say this is again, I'm going into my Margaret and David part here. And Margaret, just a little bit too bawdy for me at times. And at other times, there were some stretches that I found a bit dull, but overall, it was an enjoyable watch. That's really how I felt about this particular film. So,
Part of the reason I love this film, so obviously memories. I have memories of this film. But for some reason, and I think we've kind of nailed it a bit on the head, or you have, is it always seems to give me something new. I watch the film and I attach to something different. And I think you've nailed down why, and it's that episodic kind of second half of the film, or even 2/3 of the film, really. That whole kind of like you can focus on just one of the little bits, and it's kind of like a clip farming from the past, like people make content now deliberately so that it can be cut up into small bits and put on the internet to advertise it, but that was before that time. It just, yeah, that
it's almost a precursor to memification, this movie. Like, if you look
very
at
much
all of
so.
these tiny little bits that you go, that's a comedy bit, that's a comedy bit, that's a comedy bit. They don't necessarily relate to what comes before it or what comes after it, but they are pretty funny in and of their own rights. So, Young
And we
Frankenstein
spoke
could be a sleeper TikTok hit. Who knows?
and we spoke about it when we were talking about Robin Hood, in that the jokes per minute formula works because yes, some of the jokes you're not going to find funny, but they're very quickly replaced by a joke you will find funny. So again, that joke per minute formula really kind of works. Also, I wanted to mention why you said this movie never got a sequel. It should have got a sequel. No Mel Brooks movie has ever had a sequel until very recently.
No, I didn't know that.
They're making Spaceballs 2.
Okay, there
Have you
you
seen
go.
Spaceballs?
I haven't, no.
Oh, that's another Mel Brooks movie. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I've seen Spaceballs as well. So yeah, they're making a sequel to that movie. I think it's filming in Australia, actually.
There you
Um,
go.
but yeah, that sort of comedy in a strange way doesn't really lean itself to sequels. And you actually see proof of that with the scary movies and the Not Another Teen movies. As soon as they started repeating and sequelizing, you kind of dilute the material too much too fast. Like if you're throwing a movie together with so many jokes and so many homage points, and then you try to sequelize it, you've used all the stuff in the first movie.
And I think that's why when I sort of said I wouldn't mind a sequel. I was really talking about the chemistry of that trio
just
on
those
screen.
trio.
It's really just those three doing things. I thought they were a great, comedic trio to carry you through the film. So, what was interesting as well was the kind of mixture of all of the old Universal stuff together. For instance, he says he goes to Transylvania, and Transylvania is not actually associated with Frankenstein. Transylvania is associated with Dracula, and there is Bride of Frankenstein and then Bride of Dracula as well, like or Dracula's brides, if you like. So, and this movie is kind of taking all of that and it just sort of chucks it together. It might be called Young Frankenstein, but it's not just necessarily going after Frankenstein movies, if you like. There's a lot of that Universal horror DNA to all of it.
So I also want to talk about a movie we watched previously, very recently actually, and that is The Jungle Book. Now,
you keep coming back to this. You've raised The Jungle Book in G.I. Joe. Now you've raised it again. I didn't like it that much the first time, Ben. Why do you keep returning to this well?
Because this movie has something in common with it that you bit really hard on in The Jungle Book, but you haven't in this movie.
Okay, hit me.
You really didn't like that it said based on The Jungle Book, because you're like, it's not The Jungle Book. Now, I know this is Young Frankenstein, it's a different title, but this is also based on the novel Frankenstein.
This is also a spoof. This is a parody, whereas The Jungle Book, you could argue it's a parody. Now, of course, if you weren't familiar, if you haven't watched our other podcast on The Jungle Book, we are not talking about one of the many versions that you are familiar with. We are talking about a version that you are most certainly not familiar with from the mid-90s, right? So we're not talking about the Disney animated classic. We're not talking about the recent Disney animated live action
type ones,
sort of strange looking thing. We're talking about the one from, what was it, 1994, 1993, something like that.
By Stephen Sommers.
By Stephen Sommers, which was a live action kind of Jungle Book movie. But anyway, you can watch our full podcast if you're interested at all in that. But
so there is a distinction, is what you're saying.
There's a total distinction for me, because if it was like, The Jungle Book and it's a parody of The Jungle Book, I don't mind as much. But this Young Frankenstein is clearly sending it up, if you like. So I had no problem there at all. So
I want to set us some time, and I think now's the time, is to talk about Gene Wilder. Gene Wilder plays manic, eccentric, crazy, maybe better than anybody ever has. We've got two clear examples now in this movie, and a movie we haven't watched but everyone is familiar with, and that is Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. His
is Willy Wonka and the
his
Chocolate
is Willy
Factory.
Wonka. I always forget which is which.
Yeah, I only remember because it's like they changed the title for his movie, and it was subject of some controversy.
But like his kind of dark undertones, eccentric, insane, brilliant person persona shines in both movies to different degrees. He's much more melodramatic in this movie on purpose, deliberately. But like his ability to kind of turn that on and off in this movie and then in subsequent movies is inspiring. Like I love watching him.
I think he's a great performer. This one, to me, compared to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, this is more of a flat-out comedy mania. There's something really special about his Willy Wonka where it's refined. It is that refined threat that is there for a lot of it, which makes you very uncomfortable, but also you're leaning into the performance. And this one is much more of a buffoon. And I found that quite fun to actually watch the straight up buffoonery take place here. And he does a great job of that. His hair is almost another character in the movie in and of itself. So where he's trying to tame it, but it's getting more and more mad scientist as the film progresses. And that's great to watch.
I don't have much left. Like, we've spoken about the structure, we've spoken about the actors and the characters. The Mel Brooks humor of that era doesn't neatly translate to the modern era for sure, but what it really does is kind of show a genesis and what do they call it? An influence on modern comedy that you can see all the way through. Like from everything from simple dad jokes to repeated gags to kind of really some complex bits of comedy in parts are just fantastic. And what makes it work in a Mel Brooks film is that each character is doing it as if that is what their character would do in the reality of their world. It is almost a straight play, except for people like Igor, who plays to the camera deliberately in parts. The rest of them are kind of just simply who they are. They aren't jokes. They are silly and crazy, but they aren't jokes in themselves. And I think that's probably what is brilliant about this movie to me. And I know it is other people's favorites as well. And I know other people aren't super into it. But I think also that can be a sign of a good piece of comedy as well. Is it doesn't have to be broad and for everyone. It can be specific or it can be both. But yeah, Mel Brooks, man, he is my goat when it comes to comedy and this sort of stuff. Mel Brooks, Monty Python, they're all in that same echelon.
Yeah, look, ultimately, at the end of the day, I really enjoyed this movie.
Yay!
I did. I'm glad you picked it. It's not something I ever would have picked on my own, I don't think, either, which is one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast, so that we can stretch each other's tastes a little bit. So I was unexpectedly surprised, and I found Young Frankenstein to be quite enjoyable. But I'm not sure if you're going to find what I have for us next so enjoyable.
Well, it's probably time to end the podcast then and never return. So,
but if you could tell the good people of the interwebs where to find us in the meantime, I am then going to hit you with what we're going to be doing next.
Jim and Ben's Movie Adventures. Type that into YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify, and you will find our podcast in either listening or visual form. When you do find it, have a look at our back catalogue. We've been doing this for a while now. We've definitely done movies that you've seen or might be interested in talking about with us. Go back, watch those, and obviously watch this one as well, or the next one. If you do like what we do, really appreciate a follow or a subscribe. It makes a difference to us, and we really enjoy seeing those little numbers tick up, and we really enjoy people coming back to see what we're doing each week. If you really want to tell us something, that's what the comment section's for. Jump in there, tell us your favorite Mel Brooks movie, tell us your favorite comedy, tell us your family favorite, tell us a movie we should watch, and we might watch it for you. If you want to follow us on any sort of social media, you can do so at Jim_and_Ben for Instagram and Jim and Ben's Movie Adventures on TikTok. Now, Jim, disappoint me.
Well, sometimes when we do this podcast, we follow themes or we do groupings of movies. And you're going to think that I'm doing this to spite you, and I'm not. Okay? I promise I'm not.
I'll be the judge of that.
Look, we recently did a theme, which was Stephen Sommers.
Yeah.
And we have now pivoted to Young Frankenstein. Well, Stephen Sommers kind of mucked around with some Frankenstein and Universal horror lore as well. And so I thought this could be the perfect time to reintroduce a different Universal horror mashup movie. That's right. We're going to watch 2004's Van Helsing next.
How dare you, sir? This is a betrayal and a backtrack. I shall take this to the council.
I've justified it very well, right?
Oh, it fits. It fits super neatly. But we all know what you did, Jim, and we all, well, let's just say, you've opened a floodgate here. You have opened a realm where I can get wacky too, and let's just see what happens.
Look, you got pretty wacky when you picked Young Frankenstein, so...
Young Frankenstein was technically a repick. We were coming back to fix a wrong for Young Frankenstein.
Anyway, look, if you want to revisit Van Helsing with us, please join us again next week. And until then, Have a great time.
Thank you very much, guys.
Have a great
time.
Have enjoy your life.
It's
Enjoy it.
Frankenstein.
It's Ben's like, get out of there. Get out of there. Sign off now. Finish the podcast.
I was trying to help and you've kept going.
But goodbye.
Bye.
The worst goodbye.
Stop.